Hey, you ready?
No shit, that's you.
Hey, 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 yeah, hey. Let's chop it up. Let's chop it. Let's chop it up. Let's chop it. Yeah, let's chop it up. Let's chop it up.
All right, this is Let's Chop It Up with Zaz, and today we got a special guest, IceRocks. What's up, brother?
Chilling, man. Thank you for having me.
No doubt, man. That's what we're here to do, brother. So like I told you before, I wanted to bring you up here and pretty much celebrate your career, right?
Thank you.
And celebrate the new album that you just put out.
Appreciate it.
You know, because you sent me that joint. I was listening. I was like, damn, this is crazy. This is crazy. And it's kind of bugged too, because I know you was actually like, when you made those tracks, you already knew who was going to be on them, right?
Always. Yeah, the way I make beats is I usually make something like as soon as I start it, I kind of have someone in mind. And sometimes it changes, if like depending on how the track kind of progresses, but usually I have people in mind and I try to make sure that they get to those places,
Definitely, man.
And even sometimes I like to do stuff like, where you wouldn't expect, but I hear it, you know what I mean? And then people tell me, they're like, wow, I never would have heard this person on that beat, but it works.
It works perfect. It works perfect. Yeah, I do the same thing, man. Like when I get the track, I write to it and then I go, damn, I want this person on that joint. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly. You got to visualize it. You know what I mean?
Definitely got to visualize it, man. So, so tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
I've been making music for a long time. But yeah, I started off with my group DXA. That's kind of where it all started. It was like a bunch of friends that kind of started doing music together. They were all rapping kind of before I started making beats. And I would freestyle with them and get drunk and do the whole thing. And I just started realizing that, I always was listening to music and always listening to beats. If I got a new album, I would listen to the album, but I would listen to all the music first, like every time the music would catch me first. So I started kind of like doing that. I mean, it all started with like collecting records. I started, collecting records at 13 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I started like, wanting to know, kind of who played on what, and then it progressed. But my dad was always into music, so that's kind of where I got it from. He was obsessed with music. He collected vinyl and reel to reels, and then it was CDs, but he listened to like more classical music. So I was like, I appreciated that, but it wasn't really my thing. So I started looking at, it started with the hip hop, and then I got into the jazz and the funk and the soul and and all that. So, and then I started finding samples that people used, and I was like, oh, that's how they did it. You know what I mean? So it kind of opened up my brain, and I was like, okay, like, I like this. I like how this is all constructed and how people, kind of like breathe new life into old music. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where it all started. So, when I got with my guys DXA, it was kind of like, it just made sense that I wanted to start making beats. So I was like, let me start making beats. And soon enough, I was much better at making beats than I was at rapping. So I figured, here we go.
You figure you stick to the beats.
But it's funny, like people used to tell me, they're like, oh, you're actually like better than you think. And I'm like, I never got past the not liking my voice on a track. You know what I mean? Like, it takes a while for you to kind of get used to that, I think, because the way you sound to yourself is different than the way you sound to other people. You know what I mean? So to me, like every time it sounded one way and then I'd record it and it like wouldn't really sound the way I wanted it, and then I kind of was like, all right. But then I just kind of, it progressed and I just started making beats, and that's what took over my focus,
That's perfect, man.
And I'm glad I did, because, that's what I love to do. So it worked out,
Yeah. And trust me, man, that it sounds amazing, bro.
Thank
It's
you.
like a
Thank you.
musical.
Yeah, exactly. And I always try to like, I try to like paint a picture with with whatever I'm putting together. And with an album, I always try to like make it flow a certain way. Like so I played the album for some people and they're like, oh, well, why is the song with Benny and Mayhem so like later on in the music? And I'm like, well, it flows that way. I mean, I started putting them together and that's the way it flowed. And I was like, I like the way once I finally got it to the way it is, I like the way that sounded. So I'm like, it's an overall experience because I grew up listening to cassette tapes and shit and vinyl, like, so, you put on a cassette, I'm not fast forwarding and I'm listening to the whole thing straight through. So when you make an album, that's the way I kind of do it. I want it to be an experience as opposed to like, oh, I'm just going to go to track 7 or track 9 or whatever, So that's kind of how I do it.
Yeah, it definitely flew. It is a joint that you could just listen to all the way through, man.
Yeah, appreciate that. That's
Definitely.
kind of what that's kind of like, how I've always wanted to do it. And it comes back from the making like mixtapes on the cassettes and all that stuff and the 2-track and we used to have a 4-track tape recorder and all that. And so that's kind of where I get my chops. So for me, that was always important. And then listening to, Pete Rock and all these guys with the little interludes. And that's why I threw that little interlude at the end of Draft Day, because an ode to that, because it's kind of like a lost art, you know what I mean, with that. Everybody was like, oh, well, this is my favorite song, I'm gonna listen to this 17,000 times, as opposed to everything together.
Everything together. Yeah, you appreciate it more when you hear it all the way through, man.
Yeah, and it's also like that's the way the artist intended for you to hear it. You know what I mean? At least that's where I come from. You know what I mean? So to me, that's important. Even if it doesn't translate and people don't like do it that way, that's the way I intend it to be listened to. So,
That's perfect, man. That's perfect. Well, you did a great job with that, man, which is out right now, right?
Yeah, it's out. It came out on the 5th. So it came out like, what was that, last Friday?
Definitely, man. So make sure y'all go out and support that, man. Definitely support that. Support the whole catalog, man.
Thank you.
No?
Thank you.
So how was it working it? How was it working it? You had, you had to get the artists and everything like that. How was the process with that?
For me, it's like it wasn't too hard because I was already working with all these artists. So, everybody was, ready to do something for me because I got beats on all their albums pretty much, or at least most of them, or I already had a relationship with them. So it wasn't too strenuous. Like pretty much everybody, I was like, yo, can you drop something on this? They're like, absolutely. You know what I mean? So that's the way I like to work too. It's like, I've reached out to other people before and done stuff with other people and, that I haven't worked with before. And it's a fine experience, but it's not as, it's not as like quick and easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So especially when, some of these artists I produced, multiple songs on different projects. So they were ready to give me a verse, no problem. So it worked out pretty well. And, it kind of happened as we were going along with everything. So once I felt like it was done, I kind of put it together and put the final touches on it.
Oh, that's great, man.
I mean, it takes a little longer as a producer to put an album together sometimes, you know what I mean? Just because, it's like, I don't know, you're doing so much with everything else. And, everybody's like, send me beats for this and send me beats for this and send me, you know what I mean? So then you're like, wow, what do I have for myself, But that's kind of how it went. But yeah, even some of the songs that ended up on other people's projects were originally supposed to be for me,
For
but
you.
then it ended up, like the song "Don't Make Me" with Benny on the Green Lantern tape, the Butcher on
Yes.
Steroids.
Yes.
So that was a song was originally supposed to be for my album that I was putting together, and we did the song, and then Benny called me and was like, yo, is there any way I could use that for this project I got going on? I was like, well, what's going on? What is it? He's like, well, I'm doing a project with Green Lantern. I was like, take it. Let's go. Like, just go. Take it. You know what I mean? You need this right now. And for me, that was like, I thought it was going to be a better placement than me just holding it for a year or so to put on my album. I was like, and I knew we'd make more music. So I was like, that makes sense. And once it came out on the album, it was like it fit perfectly as the final track. You know what I mean? So it just works out that way sometimes. You know what I mean?
Man, that was great, man. That's great, man. I appreciate pretty much everything that you've been doing under your name, right? Under your brand.
Thank you.
So the bunker beats, that actually feels like you're somewhere, like you're isolated
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
listening to the tracks, and it's like you take the tracks and you mesh them, but it's giving you a little bit of everything, jazz.
Yeah.
You even got classical in some of these
Yeah.
joints.
So basically
Yeah.
with that is the way that whole thing started was, you remember, what it was like a hurricane back in, what was that? Hurricane Irene. So Hurricane Irene was happening, and I was living with my ex at the time, like my old girlfriend, and she was out of town. So what I did was I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not staying in the apartment. I'm going to the studio. So I was in the studio. And I was like, I got to make sure that the studio was in the basement. So I was like, I got to make sure this place doesn't flood. So I was like, I'm gonna go over there. I was like, I'm gonna make beats until the power goes out. You know what I mean? So I started making beats and doing that, and I made like 8 beats in 48 hours, or 8 beats that I liked, that I wanted to keep in 48 hours. And then I kind of like put them aside. I was like, I'll get to it. You know what I mean? I'll get back to this. I'll get back to this. So that's how the whole idea came about. I was like, okay, bunker beats. I was like, I'm in the bunker. You know what I mean? During, like, things are going crazy awry outside, but I'm staying right here and I'm going to get it done. So that's kind of how that whole thing started. So that's how Bunker Beats 1 came together, and then Bunker Beats 2, and came from that idea. Some of those songs ended up being songs on people's projects, but I still used them as, like, you know what I mean? And I put it together. I made sure my man DJ Wolf did all the blending and made sure that everything kind of flowed, and we sat there and, I put the clips in and everything. And, I always try to make it like flow, like I said. So that's kind of how that all happened. But it was all birthed from me locking myself in the studio for
Wow.
like that duration of time. And that's kind of how that whole thing came about.
Hey, how about that? That is smooth, brother. That is definitely smooth.
But it's funny because, man, people are like they don't know the story behind it. So then when they ask me, they're like, oh, this makes so much more sense now. You know what I mean? So
That is pretty cool, man. That is pretty cool. So you're from New York, obviously, right?
yeah, born and raised. I grew up in like the East Village, Lower East Side area. And then I've been out in Queens for about, I don't know, 17 years or something now.
Nice.
So a little back and forth, but yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm from.
Where
I
about?
came. I was East New York, Brownsville.
Okay.
I was out there, and first Manhattan, then East New York, Brownsville, now Philly.
Okay.
So I'm in
I
Philly
love
now.
Philly. Philly's great, man. It's like one of my second homes. I have a lot of homies down there, and we've done a lot of shows down there and stuff. I used to go digging down there a lot.
Yeah, there's not that much no more, man.
Yeah, there used to be a lot of record stores there, Doylestown, like all these little spots I used to go to. Because we used to mess a lot with these group, Dramatic and Lingo, from Kick Drum Products. They used to do a lot of work.
Nah, I'm not too familiar, but yeah.
So we used to do a lot of like beat battles and stuff like that. And those guys were the homies. So I used to go down there and go dig in with them and stuff. And yeah, we had a lot of fun down there. I've had some good times. And my man Screw
Nice.
Tape is, from right outside there. And the Suplex guys are great. So I go down there and visit them. And yeah, it's
That's
a
cool,
good
man.
place, man.
Yeah,
Definitely
man. It's definitely good.
a lot better what's it called? Like cost of living down there. It's definitely a lot better.
Big time, big time. I'm telling you, man. A lot of people don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've looked at the real estate down there. I'm like, damn, man, this is like, I've thought about it. My girl doesn't want to move, but I thought about it.
Oh man, you gotta let her know, man. She gotta come, bro. This thing is off the chain over here.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm telling you, man. So you do a lot of work with Mad Hatton, right?
Yeah, that's like my brother right there. I've known him for 20 years. Yeah.
You could tell, man, Because I think that when a producer and an artist have a chemistry, forget about it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we met when we were in like, we were in school, you know what I mean? Like we were still like, so we've known each other for a long time. And like, then we used to work together. I got him a job when he needed a job. And it's like, so basically, and then basically he's, I was doing my thing and he wasn't really rapping that much at the time. And then he kind of got the spark. He like did a project, I think with a producer from Philly. I forget what his name is, but he did a project with a producer and he released it. And then he was like, yo, I really want to get up with you. And I was like, yeah. He's like, I want to do a project with you. I was like, well, I mean, I got a lot going on right now, but like, just come to the studio. We'll do a song. Like, that's no problem. Like, I've known you forever. Like, let's just get something done. If you use it, whatever, like, let's just do it. So he came to the studio and I'm playing him beats. And I think the second one I played, he was, or I played it by accident, actually. Like I was going through the beats and I took it off. He's like, no, what's that? So I played it for him. He's like, why didn't you play this for me? He's like, I like that. I was like, well, it's for Benny. And he was like, oh, okay, I got you. So then I played him another one. He's like, okay, that's the one. So he did something like that. And then like, I guess it was like a week later, 2 weeks later, they did Benny was in town because he was doing a show with Spesh. And I introduced them at the show. And he was like, yo, you think you could come by the studio and we do some work? He's like, yeah, definitely. He's like, over IceRocks beat. He's like, oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I'll see you. So he came to the studio and he's like, yo, put on that beat. And I was like, oh, I see you. So I was like, you know what, whatever. So I put it on. He's like, oh, no, this is perfect. And then that was what was on Brown Water Bible, which was the song with Benny on it. So that's kind of how that came about. And then, so I was like, we started working on some, like, it was basically like, then I played him another beat. I was like, oh, this is for this person. He's like, oh, I'm gonna get Camino on. So like, he was smart about it. And I was like, all right. So then we had like a couple songs in and I was like, I guess we're doing a project. You know what I mean? Like, let's do it. So that's how that Brown Water Bible came about. And, his work ethic is incredible, like,
Oh, look how he got in.
yeah, like, dude, sometimes he's just like, we gotta get like let's go. He's a shark. So I respect that. And even when sometimes I'm like, yo, I'm gonna go home, he's like, nah, let's go in the studio. I'm like, all right, so he pushes me too. So that's good, and I introduced him to a bunch of people that I know. So he's been, doing more stuff with other people. So it's just, I'm helping him. He's helping me. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
it's a the one hand washes the other type situation.
That's perfect, man. That's the only way to be. Wow.
Mhm.
That's a great story there, man.
Yeah, and he's an incredible rapper. You know what I mean? So that's a
Yeah.
whole nother thing. And you could tell he's been doing this a long time, even if he wasn't like releasing music and stuff. You could tell he didn't start rapping like 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
could tell.
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
Wow, that's crazy. The chemistry with you guys are amazing, man. Are definitely
Appreciate that.
amazing.
Appreciate that. You got a favorite song?
From which one?
Anything we've done.
Ah, I like the bunker joints.
Okay.
I don't really have like a favorite.
You're like me. It's
like
hard
everything.
it's hard to like pinpoint like that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
People ask me my top 5. It changes like every day.
I like everything, man. I like everything.
Appreciate it.
Everything. I love the Flea lower track too.
Yep.
But nah, man. But I'm gonna tell you one thing that sticks out from you.
Okay.
And and to me, this is my style. This is the way I like to work over this production. You have an ear for like jazzy,
Yeah.
the Roots, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul. That's how I do my stuff.
Got you.
You know what I mean? So when I heard that, I was like, wow.
Yeah, because a lot of people are into just the grimy stuff or just into the like the Dipset, like vocal samples and what. But for me, I was, like the things that I loved was, I loved Pete Rock. I loved Large Pro. I I mean, Prince Paul. I mean, the list goes on and on. I also loved RZA. I also like Mob D. I mean, all that shit. So I kind of like went all over the spectrum, but basically DXA was my group that I started with. It was more like jazz. It was like we were all influenced by like, you know, De La Soul and all that stuff. And so it was three rappers and me producing. So everybody was kind of like, you know, it was that back and forth, you know, like I'll finish your lines type thing. So, you know, it had that like native tongues type movement. So that's kind of where I got my chops. And that's the type of stuff that they liked. So we kind of, that's where I started at, you know what I mean? It was like, I was like, okay, I need to make stuff that works for this situation. So that's kind of why I love Prince Paul so much. You know, I mean, I've said this before, like, you know, he was doing beats for De La Soul and Gravediggers like in the same year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even though the Gravedigger stuff came out later because they, you know, people didn't get it, the record labels were like, what is this? You know, but he was doing both those at the same time. So I kind of like just, you know, hop around the spectrum and not just do one thing. Cause to me, that's boring. You know what I mean? Like I make trap beats too sometimes, you know, and people are like, really? I'm like, yeah, like to me, it's music, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, like I've had this conversation with people before and I forget who's the first person that brought this term to me but there's good music and bad music. And that's pretty much it. You know what I mean? Like
there's no in between, man.
Right. Like there's good music and bad music, right? Like, yes, there's different degrees of it, but like if something's good, you usually can tell that it's good, right? So to me, it's like it doesn't matter if it's a jazzy record or a soulful record or a you know, I mean, or a classical whatever. As long as it's good and it's put together well, you know, it's gonna make its point.
That's great, man. That's
You know?
great. Wow. So how is it right now for you? You know, the way things are now, I think that this is the best the underground has ever been. To me, it's the underground. I represent the underground hip hop. You know what I'm saying? So for you to be here now, the way things are, I think that is in our favor. What you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And I think there's definitely a resurgence of quality hip hop coming out. You know what I mean? I think people are, I think, you know, I don't think it's just because of the hip hop movement. I think it's because of a lot of things. I think that kids in general are very open to things now. And they're like, you know, that like kids nowadays, like they're just like, you do you, you know what I mean? Like if you want to be like a goth, you be a goth, you know what I mean? You want to do this, you do that. Like people don't care and they all hang out together. So I think it's kind of reflects like in everything. So if you look at hip hop, you know, just like, let's just look at hip hop. I mean, the Griselda movement is incredible. You know what I mean? There's a lot of like things on top of that have been built on that. But it was like kind of it was refreshing that stuff was getting attention again. You know what I mean? To the point where Busta Rhymes is, you know, doing stuff that sounds like that again and featured on, you know what I mean? And you look at all these other artists and they're like doing, you know, they took a page out of Rock Marciano's book or they took a page out of this person's book. And they're like, okay, I'm gonna do a little drumless this or this. I don't need to have this huge production or this huge whatever, like to make it a splash or to prove my point, you know? So I feel like, and especially with the independence of people doing independent music, like, you know, even the Mac Millers and the Wiz Khalifas and the whatever, like they all started with that too. Like it was all like, I'm just gonna put it out myself, you know what I mean? And with the online platforms and now there's tons of internet radio, podcasts, like there's ways of getting your stuff out and you just got to kind of navigate that. And you don't need a huge budget. You need to have some budget. You got to put something behind it. You can't like, you know, you're not just going to put up a song and expect to get 500,000 streams, you know what I mean? Like right off the bat, like you got to build it.
You got to build it.
But I feel like the shit's kind of like wide open for people to kind of do their thing. And there's enough room for everybody to make some money, you know what I mean? And get some attention. So I think it's a great time, you know what I mean? It's definitely, No, I've been doing it for a while. You know what I mean? I take breaks. I've taken breaks before, and I've been discouraged before, and that's just life.
Human,
But
man.
but I've been, I put out my first project that I did production on was like in 2005, right? And it did what it did. Like we were just excited to have music out. We pressed up a
That's what
thousand
I did.
CDs.
I came out that same year.
Oh yeah, yeah. There you
Yeah,
go. So like
2005.
we thought we were gonna sell 1,000 CDs. I was like, yeah, let's go. I mean, we definitely didn't sell 1,000 CDs. So it is what it is. But then I linked up with Mayhem like around 2007, and we did Got the Fever. You know what I mean? I did Got the Fever for him, which was a big record. And I did at the time I had no idea how to like capitalize on any of that shit. You know what I mean? And I like, I didn't even have a social media or anything. I had like Facebook maybe, and I might have had like a MySpace. I think I had MySpace at the time or whatever.
MySpace was big back then.
Yeah. So like we used to do beat battles like on MySpace, and then we had a SP1200 forum, and we were doing beat battles on there, and like I was into all that. So that was fun, but it was like, it's just, it takes time to build stuff, and sometimes it doesn't happen right away. Like even like talking Griselda, like all those guys are like my age or older, you know what I mean?
That took
So
years. That took years.
you know what I'm saying? So and then look at Shay. Shay, rest in peace. That's my man. He was 48, you know what I mean? Like he was like a decade older than everybody else, you know what I mean? So like sometimes it takes a while for people to catch on, and that's okay. Like, it's kind of, when Jay-Z put out his first album, everybody thought he was too old. He was 26,
He was 26.
So like, look at that, now 2 decades later, you could be 30 something and put out something and people pay attention, So maybe down the road, a 50-year-old rapper is going to come out of nowhere. Who knows? But, I think it's like, I think that with people being more open and like, and the independent circuit, I think it's kind of like it's opened doors for a lot of people, and it's good to see, I mean, at the end of the day, like sometimes it's overwhelming how much music is coming out. You know what I mean?
I know.
And like, it's hard to even keep up sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially, you have a show. You gotta like get music for the show. You gotta, like I used to have a radio show back in the day with my man D-Face from DXA, at Baruch College, and that's how I met Mayhem. But we used to have to I used to have to sit there and clean all the songs. So like with D, so we would be like, we clean the songs for every single week, and for 3 years we didn't play the same song twice. That's a lot of work. You know what I mean? Just every week, just cleaning, reversing curses, you know what I mean? And we did it because we loved it, you know what I mean? And we had a good time doing it. And I met a lot of people because of it. So, it's now I can, it's good that you can play dirty music, so you don't have to, do all that. But, there was at that time, I wasn't going to hit up Pete Rock and be like, yo, can you send me the clean versions? Like, he'd be like, the hell are you talking about? Like, whatever, don't find it, do it yourself, So I feel like now it's definitely like cool. There's a lot of people like pushing themselves, doing YouTube channels, doing this, like especially people making money now too. Like YouTube is a huge platform. Like people don't realize YouTube is a bigger streaming platform than like Spotify. Like
yeah,
like people don't realize that because they might not be that age. They don't go to YouTube to listen to stuff or look at stuff, except for like maybe some podcasts or whatever. But it's a huge platform.
It's huge, man. It's huge.
And like people are making millions of dollars on YouTube.
I know, man. They are.
It's crazy.
Yeah, man. I started this, man, because I felt like there wasn't enough outlets for underground artists and whatnot. And I'm a huge fan. So I'm like, yo, why not? Let's do it. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Get to meet a lot of people and get to celebrate with them, because at the end of the day, they get me through days, so I was like, yo, 100%. Maybe I could get other people through days. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. And like you were saying, like, it's cool because you end up, you talk to people like when they're like excited, they release an album, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's like, that's a good interaction usually, you know what I mean? So that's kind of a dope thing too, So like that keeps that energy going, you know what I mean?
Yeah, especially these with the radio with tapping radio.
Uh-huh.
That right there, man, it's like very touching because people send you stuff and it's like, wow, this
Yeah.
guy's pretty good, or this girl could really sing, or that
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
be killing it, and it's like a diamond in the rough. So
Yeah,
it's
and
like
people
it's
and
yeah,
and people and people don't like they send the stuff out expecting no one to listen to it. You know what I mean? Sometimes like you just do it because you want to send it out and hopefully something comes back. And the fact that like someone like yourself or people in that with the platforms are like paying attention to what's going on, it's cool because I can send myself to Hot 97, and if it's not Peter Rosenberg, people aren't gonna fucking pay attention. You know what I
no,
mean? Like Pete, like he does, but like if I send myself to Ebro, he's gonna be like, who the hell? Like who like even though he mentioned my name on the radio before with the Mayhem interview, he's still probably not gonna be like, who the hell is who's this guy? You know what I mean? So it's good to have all the different levels of radio and podcasts and whatever, and giving platforms and light to people that might not be getting it elsewhere. You know what I mean? Which is cool.
but to me, as a personal preference, I just don't put anybody on here.
No,
I
of
have to
course, of
have a
course,
personal preference,
of
and
course.
when it comes to like, if you're up here, I got mad love for everything you're doing.
Right, right, right. Which says something. You know what I mean? Like, so that's a. It's not like you're just having you up to do the interview. Like I don't know. I saw an interview with like Sticky Fingers. I think it was years ago. He was somewhere doing an interview. I think it was Sticky Fingers. But anyway, they're like asking him questions, and he's like, "What's your favorite? Have you seen this?" What's your favorite song? And she's like, he's like, you didn't even listen to my fucking shit. He's like, you kidding me? He's like, I sat down here. So he like gets up and I'm out of here. And it's true. Like people, like some of these outlets, like they just want to ask you crazy questions and see what your reaction is going to be. And they don't even care about the music.
No, they
So
don't. They don't care about none. They don't care about none of that,
it's
man.
all about like the thumbnail and what they can draw you in with. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's good to see people that actually appreciate stuff, and like they do this for the love of doing it. You know what I mean? Like
Yes, for the love of
that's
doing it.
that's how I started. You know what I mean? Like I was making I'd be making music probably if no one was listening to it, but thankfully that's not the case. You know what I mean?
And getting better, man. And
Yeah,
getting
no,
better.
exactly. And like, people want it all up front sometimes. And unfortunately that's not how it goes. Not
No.
everybody's gonna make the designer panda song and blow up and disappear off the face of the earth. You know what I mean? Like that's not gonna happen for everybody. It's not gonna happen for most people. So, you gotta kind of, just keep putting your best foot forward and keep, building on what you do, and hopefully it turns into something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you could definitely tell the growth from the instrumentals to the full lengths to the EPs. You're definitely putting in that work, man. Definitely
Appreciate
putting
it.
in that work.
Appreciate it.
You're very
Appreciate it.
selective. You're very selective on
Oh
how
yeah.
you put this out.
Now it's fun. It's funny that you said that because I've gotten hit up by artists before, and I'm like, the first thing I do before I even say anything, I'm like, all right, well, this is what I charge for a beat. I was like, but you gotta send me music first because I'm not doing anything unless I like I hear something I like. Because I don't need to make beats for just anybody. You know what I mean? Like to
Yeah.
me, there's a legacy there too. You know what I mean? So you don't hear my stuff everywhere. You know what I mean? You're not gonna hear it on everybody's album.
On everybody's album.
You know what I mean? So
Definitely.
especially because I've been doing it for so long. So I'm not gonna just go and just to make some money, like just to make some money to do whatever. Like to me, at the end of the day, like that's kind of like watering down your brand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta know who to deal with at the end of the day, man.
And I definitely, and don't get me wrong, like it's a little bit different for rappers because you get that feature money and whatever. But and I'm and but with the beats, I feel like sometimes it takes me, sometimes I sit there and I make a beat and then I'm like, okay, well, it's not finished. I need horns on it, or I need this, or I need that, and like so I build on it. So you know, it doesn't necessarily take me 10, 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour to make the beat. Sometimes it's, you know, sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's not. So, you know, I don't want to just throw it out there just for some bread, you know what I mean?
Just for some bread.
And at the end of the day, like, you know, it's going to be more impactful if it goes on a bigger artist record or my album, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
you got to
Definitely,
think about it
brother.
that way too.
Yeah, you got to, man. And it's all about, time, man. Time. Being
Yeah.
being there, and people gotta respect that at the end of the
Yeah, and
day.
especially you get older, you know, you have other interests, you have other things you do, you have a family or like a, you know, a girlfriend or a wife, or, you know, you can't just be in the studio every single waking hour of the day, you know what I mean? And then you know, your parents get a little older, you got to make sure that
You
you
gotta
know,
make
go
sure
see
they all
them and
right.
check in on them, make sure they got food and they're doing all right, you know?
The
So,
more we grow, the more we do, man.
yeah, exactly. So it's, you know, it's a journey, you know what I mean? And people just want to get to the destination, and I'm like, they don't realize that part of the whole gift in the present is the journey, you know what I mean? And the what happens along the way, and the lessons and the learning, and you know, it's
Everything, man.
yeah,
Everything put together is a lot, man. Definitely is a
100%,
lot.
100%.
So tell people which artists you produce for, man. For the people
I
that don't know.
produced for Mayhem Loren. I produced for El Camino, Benny, Manhattan. Um, I've done Heem from BSF, Rick Hyde. I did some stuff for Love Boat, Luciano, who's also from BSF. UFO Feeve.
Flea Lord.
Yeah, Flea.
You did stuff for
Um,
Havoc, right?
what's up?
You did stuff for Havoc?
Nah.
No. Okay.
I did I did that Mobbin song on the Conflicted soundtrack. So
Okay.
you know, I worked with those guys. What else? Who else have I been working with? Hologram, who's you know, who's down with Mayhem. Um
Did you ever do anything with Pumpkin?
I actually, it's crazy you asked me that, because you if I actually sent Pumpkinhead some beats, and and he selected two of them, and then he passed away, unfortunately, like a few months later. Rest in peace.
How about that?
That's an unfortunate one, but yeah, like I was a huge fan of Brooklyn Ack and and what was the other group that was like, it was Brooklyn Ack, and then the bigger group was like another like a collective. I can't I forget the name of it, but with, you know, it was Pumpkinhead and Black McCloud and
Yeah, you talking about oh my
was it
god.
Brooklyn Academy, or that was the other, that was the other, I forget what it was.
It
But
wasn't
anyway,
Brooklyn Academy. Yeah,
they
but
had
there
that
was a
song,
collective with
they
them.
had that song Language Barriers and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Like that was, I was into that stuff. So that's how I got into Pumpkinhead, you know what I mean? And then I was like, oh, you know, he got his album came out, and I was like, oh wow. And then we met a couple times, and he was cool. So I was like, yeah, like let's do something, you know? And unfortunately it didn't happen in time.
Wow, how about that? Yeah, that was he was ill, man. He was ill.
Yeah, he was a good dude too. He was always like real respectful. Like I didn't have a name for shit back then. And he was like, yeah, send me some stuff, you know, like we were talking on like IG and stuff. And he was like, yo, you got some beats, man. I was like, appreciate it, you know. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
it didn't transpire. But one of them, actually, one of the beats was on the bunker beats. I forget which one it was, but that's why I put that little Pumpkinhead rest in peace on there, because that was that, like, one of those beats was supposed to be for him. So
Wow, how about that? That's crazy.
yeah,
So, do you see yourself like doing like let's say scores or some kind of soundtracks, you know?
I would actually love to do that. You know, I never really thought about that, you know, years ago, because the person that got that into my head was RZA when he was doing like his stuff with, you know, Kill Bill and all that stuff. And I was like, oh wow, like So I actually had a friend that was doing a movie. He was like writing a movie, but unfortunately it never transpired. But he was gonna have me pick all the music for it and like, you know, figure out what goes where. But I would love to do that. Like, you know, because I know vibes and I can, you know, when I do music or I listen to music, I see things, you know what I mean? So like people have said that my stuff's very visual. So I would love to put a score together or something at some point. Yeah. I mean, I've had beats in movies or in commercials, but I've never done it like sat down and scored a movie or anything.
A whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could tell with the bunker joints, man. Them joints sound like you know, you put the skits in there and everything. Right. I was like, yo, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Definitely different, man. Definitely different, brother.
Nah, and that's why I wanted to do it, because I feel like people, you know, a lot of times people are just like, oh, I got 10 songs, let's put out an album. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's cool. Like you're gonna have stuff that's cool, but it's like it doesn't necessarily have an overall like feel or something. You know what I mean? So I would definitely love to score a movie or something. That would be dope.
Definitely, man.
So if you got a movie and you got a budget, come holler at me.
Come holler at him, man. Definitely come holler at him. Definitely, man. Definitely.
Yeah, man.
So listen, are you happy, man? Are you happy with everything that you've done?
Definitely. You know, it's, as an artist, you know, you go through your ups and downs always, you know what I mean? Like even in life, just, you know, but yeah, I mean, I'm happy that I'm even able to just get up in the morning and not have to go to work anymore. You know what I mean? Like that's an awesome feeling, being able to like, you know, have my own time and be able to like do what I need to do is great. And even beyond that, just like, you know, the amount of people I've been able to meet, and like the thing that gets me even more is like you release an album and people hit you up like, yo, this song is incredible. This one made me, you know, this one remind me of my, you know, I did the song with UFO Fever and a couple people hit me up like, yo, this reminds me of my grandmother. Like, you know what I mean? Or
wow,
like, you know, all that stuff, you know, it means something and make it's more than just putting music together. You know, you're like damn near like helping people get through stuff. You know what I mean?
I know it does for me, man.
Yeah. You know, so you know, same with me. Like if I'm feeling a certain way, I put on certain music, you know what I mean? Or if I want to kind of change my mood, I put on certain things. Or if I'm cruising in the car, I want to hear certain things, you know what I mean? Certain. So to me, it's all situational, but it's, you know, music has helped me a lot in my life. So it's only right that I give back. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, we appreciate it, my brother. Definitely. I wanted to bring you up here to celebrate you and you know, just let you know how much of an amazing job you've been doing, and we watching. We appreciate everything you do for hip hop, man. Definitely.
You, man. Thank you. I'm just happy to be able to do my part, man. You know, that's really it.
Definitely, man. Really it. And I appreciate you coming on the show, man. It means a lot to me, brother.
No doubt. I'm glad to be here, man.
Definitely, man. Yo, so this is Let's Chop It Up with Zaz, and we got IceRocks up in here.
Thank you for having me, man.
No doubt, my brother. Stay right there, fam.
What up? Kill, what up? Fleet, what up? What it do? Smoother than Frankie Lyman. The way I maneuver when grinding, I'm the manure, your boy shining. Connect from Cuba, no more consignment. What you need, I'm supplying it. Inglewood nigga then became a New York giant, defying the odds. I've been defiant. Mr. Sin, I've been a tyrant, raised by crack sales.
I'm already knowing, go ahead.
Bro, it's your turn.
It ain't my turn. I did it last time.
No, the fuck you didn't. I already broke up the
conversation. We
gotta get this motherfucker out of here.
Man, get yourself with your
Bro,
turn, my nigga.
you the youth. I'm getting old, man. The fuck? Yeah. Yo.
the bed sore. So this me post civilian. Erotic thoughts in the oak pavilion. Molotov through open ceiling. Right inside your face.
Yeah.
You niggas know what's up.
Shit. Barrels get narrow when you extend the gavel. Gravel to the sea. Tide floating bricks to the knees. Enemies get close. Your toast get roast for that bragging and boast. While you hide on the coast, the clips let off like ghosts. You're feeling addicted while your whole life was scripted. Now you mad, being all vindictive. Tools of the